Hey, sports fans, it's Larry Eater with RunBlogRun. This is Athletics Chat number 35. Yes, 35. Okay. And we see the charming Stuart Weir. He's in the intellectual capital of the world, Oxford, England. It's also where they did one of those vaccines, too. Kind of cool. Yeah. And this is Larry Eater. I'm in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin. I'm halfway between Madison and Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Yes. Yeah, our votes counted here. Anyway, Stuart, great to see you. We've had let's just call it a living history week. I didn't think I'd ever see a Confederate flag go through the Capitol in the U.S. In any form, but we did, and a gentleman with bull horns with a painted chest, among others. The sad thing is there's now between 2 and 3 police officers who are dead and about 6 other people in just a very sad day in U.S. history. So we're going to try to focus on some other things today. And we've got some sad news to talk about first. A coach that I met on a few occasions who I always thought was great sense of humor and just beloved by his athletes, Lloyd Cohen, passed away this last week, and we're posting a tribute to him later today. Stuart, would you like to take it from here?
Well, I think the thing that, I can tell you all the professional stuff about Lloyd, but I think the thing that stood out to me today is Twitter, from morning till night, was athletes just telling little stories about him. Athletes he had never coached, who said he went out of his way to help me.
Wow.
He made me laugh. Laura Muir said, he always made me laugh in the warm-up areas. And Dina Asher-Smith and her mom said that when Dina started getting on British teams as a teenager, Lloyd was always the kind of, in place of a parent, looking after her.
Wow.
An athlete that I really like, Marianne Korti from Finland, said that the reason she had such a good season in 2020 was that in the winter, Lloyd had watched her practice in Florida at 6 a.m. every day and made helpful comments. So that just seems to be the nature of the man. My favorite story about him, which is in the post, is that in 2002, 2003, a girl came to him and said, I play netball, which is a game played in England, a bit like basketball. I'm in the England age group team. Could I come to your training sessions one night a week just to get a bit fitter for my netball? And Lloyd, being a nice chap, said, yeah, sure. Lloyd then picked up the story and says, I just noticed that this girl kept beating the boys. And I persuaded her to do a race, which the athlete said, I really only did it to please him because he'd been kind to me. But anyway, this girl, whose name was Christina Horrible, won the race, got selected for the European Juniors, came away with a bronze medal. Lloyd said that he sat her down and said, you got a bronze medal and you're training one night a week and you're running against people who are taking athletics really seriously. And he persuaded Christine actually to stop netball, to take it up track and field seriously. And of course, by the end of the story, she was double world champion, Olympic champion, and Olympic silver medalist. Just that was Lloyd's great success, but the number of other athletes that he just contributed to, that he was there just as a smiling face. Even Shelley Ann Fraser-Price said, London will not be the same without Lloyd wanting to discuss Jamaican recipes with me.
Oh gosh, that's
a lovely man.
Yeah, that's the nicest thing. I was trying to figure a title out for him, and I was challenged by that, but I think I've got it a little better now. He's much more than a coach, former athlete who made the '84 team, but wasn't able to compete. But but he was a good friend. And I remember him with Andy Turner a few times. So that that mischievous picture that you put in there was perfect, because they were both denizens of the night a little bit in my era, and what a good guy. So he is going to be missed. Does he have children?
I don't know.
Okay.
Oh yeah, of course he does. Yeah, yes, because his son Dwayne, who did everything he possibly could not to get on a running track, eventually gave in and ran the European Championship and got a relay medal.
That's awesome. That's cool. That's really, really neat. Oh,
but
wow.
Apparently he just said, "Okay, Dad, I give up. I give up. I'll try track and field now."
Wow. Wow. All right, my friend, we're back to our COVID-19, our little Charles Dickens character on our shoulder every day. How's it affecting Tokyo this week?
Well, it's really bad in Tokyo. They're having some kind of shutdown at the moment because their numbers are going up. They had 1,500 new infections in a particular day, and so they're having 1,000 a day in Tokyo. Now, I mean, compared to the UK, that's nothing. We've only had 4,000 die. But what is also significant is that a news agency did a survey of people living in Tokyo and say, do you think the Olympics should go ahead? And 35% said the Games should be cancelled, and 45% said the Games should be postponed. So you have well over 2/3 of the Tokyo population saying the Games should not take place this year. So also the ratings of the Prime Minister asked, is the Prime Minister dealing with the crisis well? And a month ago, 50% said yes, and this week, 40% said yes.
Well, he just announced in one of the Japanese papers that he was trying to close down 4 to 6 districts in Tokyo. And go ahead.
I was going to say 80% people said that's the right thing, but you should have done it last week.
No, I think you're. Well, look, it's. I got off the phone, ironically, just about a half hour ago with a gentleman who has worked with several of the shoe brands in the sports marketing area, and his comment plus 3 other comments from current people to me were, we're not going to see anything till 2022. And some people are doing the provocative thing and saying that it could be more difficult in 2021 than it was last year. And that's because we didn't know what we had all of last year, and we've got some real challenges now. Excuse me. I want to see an Olympics, but I also don't want to see a bunch of people dying. And I'm worried that the IOC is going to sacrifice athlete health for sponsor needs. And I knowing many of the sponsors as we do, I also know that the sponsors realize that getting a bad flavor to their brand because of something like this is just not worth it. So I hope people continue to look at the long term. We want to go to Tokyo, but when it's safe, and for the locals too. You talked about the GB indoors. You just heard that the U.S. indoors were canceled. I think you may. Also, what happened this week over here were 2 things. Paul Doyle, a gentleman who has put on some meets since 2013 called the American Track League. It was his baby. Someone tried to steal it from him, but he's still alive, and he's come up with 4 meets that'll be held in Fayetteville, Arkansas, on the amazing Tyson facility with a brand new 200 banked Mondo track, and the coaching staff at University of Arkansas, Go Hogs, they they want to do these meets. They're going to have meets on the 24th, the 30th of January, and the 7th and 14th of February. What's interesting is World Athletics has just added them to the tour. They lost Milrose, and New Balance changed dates from the February 6th to February 13th. So Paul's got a whole group of athletes at Arkansas already, even some athletes from outside of the country. Omar McLeod will be one of them. I think he's an athlete with Claude.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, one of Claude's athletes. But
Claude Bryan.
Claude Bryan. Yeah, but I think that these could possibly go off because most of the athletes are so close, and he's going to have everybody there the whole time.
Yeah.
But the U.S. Championships just got canceled. They were to be held in New Mexico. The U.S. Combined Championships have been canceled. The NCAA cross country is March 15th. The same weekend is the NCAA indoor being planned, where they'll have no fans. So I think the NCAA cross country will happen. That's actually the most popular sport, one of the most popular sports TV programs in the U.S. each year. It's been on streaming, but this time they're upgrading it to terrestrial TV as well as streaming. So I think it could be a really interesting coverage. So I've got our fingers crossed. We'll see some good stuff. But what's going on with the British champs right now?
Well, the situation is that if they were to take place tomorrow, they can happen because elite sport is being allowed without spectators. But our big game is soccer. And the Premier League players have been hugging each other after they score goals and have been shaking hands and so on. And they have been criticized by this to the extent that the government is sort of threatening that this is such a bad example for people who have been told to stay 2 meters apart, that there is a possibility that we will go in. I mean, we're in pretty, at the moment, I'm allowed to go out for exercise once a day and only do essential things. But they're saying the numbers are still too high. Our hospitals are full. There may be stricter regulations. And some people, even within soccer, are saying, look, we've just got to close it down for a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, to see if we can get under control. So it's quite possible that there will be a blanket ban on all sports events. Which would stop the British indoor. I mean, Joe Coates has secured funding from UK Sport so that the event can go ahead. It's paid for without spectators. It will be shown only on the web, streaming. But it can go ahead unless the government just says, look, we've just got to have a complete lockdown in which we stop all movement around. So I would have thought at the moment it's probably 60-40 to take place. But and I know loads of British athletes who are just saying, look, I didn't get to compete at all last year. I desperately want to get in some competition now. And who cares if it's indoor or outdoor? But I mean, just another thing, we have got a big rugby competition coming up between mainly Irish, English, British, and French teams. And currently the French government is saying, well, we're not going to allow any French team to travel outside of France and come back, and we're not going to allow any non-French teams to come into France. So, if that kind of regulation continues, it causes real problems for the indoor series, which is in different countries in Europe. Will people actually be allowed to travel from one country to another without quarantine? Or without?
That's a huge question.
It is, and I mean, I just think that they're saying that the rugby competition will probably have to be cancelled because President Macron is saying, look, sport's important, but keeping people alive in my country is more important.
How are we going to get athletes to leave in to the Lebanese Persian meeting?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I loved that last year. I'm sad that
Yeah.
I can't go, but um, um, I think there must be a great chance that these European events are really only going to have athletes who are in the country.
Yeah. I mean, if there's a, you know, if there's an American here or there who's training over there, and that happens sometimes, you get them, or a Pole who can get into France, but you just don't know how flexible the border situation is going to be either.
I was just going to say also the things can change very quickly because I mean I know some people, some journalists who went to Monaco last year for the Diamond League, and while they were actually traveling, our government announced that anyone coming back from France 24 hours later would have to quarantine for 2 weeks. And so I know Ben Bloom arrived and got on the next plane straight back home again without staying for the event, because otherwise he was going to have to quarantine for 2 weeks. So you see, it can change very quickly because as numbers go up. You know, we are currently in Britain, we've just passed 80,000 dead, and we're seeing more deaths and more new cases now than ever at any stage in the pandemic.
Wow. That's just amazing to me. No, it's just, what's happening over here, we're over 300,000. It's 3 million cases. And in California, where I used to be, they don't seem to have any room in the hospitals. So where we were in Santa Clara County near San Jose and San Francisco, they're just telling people, you're locked down, and we can't tell you how long you're going to be locked down. And where I'm at in Wisconsin, there are, it's what is it? About -3 degrees Celsius here right now, with about 3/4 of a meter of snow. And so there's a few places that we've gone for breakfast where they'll have, it used to have 12 seats and now it's got 4. You wear a mask until you get your food, and then you put your mask back on. But most places are like that. That's all over the Midwest. And we took a drive yesterday, about 2 hours into Iowa, and drove back just to get out of the house, and you got to be careful. And I think that's going to get cut back. In California, they've told people if you drive more than 150 miles, guess what? You're quarantining for 14 days. Well, I quarantined for 14 days here before I went to a doctor. And it's just, you just got to be careful.
Absolutely.
So you noted that Anna Legnani's retiring. Was that on Twitter or?
It was. I mean, I always liked her. I thought it's funny, really, because the first time I met her, she and I argued, but we just became friends afterwards.
Yeah, she was always very opinionated. I love Anna. She helped me so many times. Helped us get on some trips. We got to go. She helped Adam and Michael and myself on our first IAAF A Day in the Life tour in 2011, and where we saw Iris Merritt, Ashton Eaton, Galen, and Mo. It was absolutely a wonderful trip, and the media that we met and got to hang out with was fantastic. And it was she was always there. One of the things that people don't get is you go to these events, and for media, we're all on fixed budgets. And most of the time when an event comes to anywhere in the world, they up the prices in hotels. And so we end up staying in these dregs, but she found ways to get the media hotels that were nice, that had food and coffee shops, that had Wi-Fi. Oh my gosh. I mean, there wasn't that long ago we had a fight for Wi-Fi. And I mean, I remember, wasn't it 2012? We had to put a $500 deposit down I think it was one of my most frustrating conversations with Lord Coe. He had to watch his budget, but he thought that a lot of media just didn't have the money for it. So Anna was there to fight the good fight for media, and we always appreciate it. We're going to miss her very, very much. And she always had a good laugh, and she could give me trouble in several languages. I recall her interviewing, she interviewed Echevarria for me in his Spanish, and which was really a lot of, in Portuguese. And then she'd interview athletes, go from Spanish to Portuguese to French to Italian. It was pretty impressive. But Anna will miss you. Thank you very, very much for all your time and support of our sport.
Just before we move on, let me give you an update on one of our favorite athletes.
Sure.
Jenny Meadows has had a daughter.
Oh.
Jenny had a daughter called Arabella Connie, and her name's going to be Meadows Painter, because, of course, Jenny Meadows is married to Trevor Painter, who was her coach.
Wow.
So,
that's cool.
Happened on Sunday.
I really like Jenny. The last time I saw her was in Karlsruhe in 2019 at the indoor. Yeah. She was doing announcing with the British writer from the 80s who we all admired so much. His son, the son of that gentleman who used to write for Athletics Weekly. He was a friend of Mel Watman's, Cliff Temple. It was Cliff's son, and Jenny, and
Temple,
who I thought did a lovely job. They did a great job, and what I liked about what they were doing was we got to see it on Facebook as well as Twitter, I believe, and they did a great job. But congratulations to Jenny. She was always a fun athlete, and we'll see what event her lovely daughter gets to do.
Yeah.
So our friend Luvo Monyango, what the heck is going on with this gentleman?
Well, basically, he's had a ban for illegal substance, but Luvo, as I understand it, had addiction problems. Managed to get his way through that, nearly won the Olympics in 2016, won London 2017, but that somehow he's had a relapse. So the issue that he's in trouble for is not performance enhancing, but it's just some of his what is sometimes called recreational drugs.
Yeah.
And that I sent him a message, but I spoke to an athlete I knew who thought that he may have changed his phone number, but he didn't have his new phone number. But anyway, I've interviewed him a couple of times, thought he was a lovely guy. He was, he certainly didn't lack ambition, because he was talking about how close to 9 meters he could get. Just a very friendly long jumper, black South African, and it'll be a shame that we're not going to see him on the scene for a bit. And more important than that, really hoping that he can sort out his private life and get things together, because a lovely human being, a lot of fun. A man with ambition, talked about the possibility of doing a 9-meter jump and things like that. So I will certainly miss him. I hope he sorts his life out soon.
Yeah, Luvo, I thought, was one of the most talented athletes that you and I had ever seen. And like you said, some of the jumps were extraordinary. And he was always quite entertaining at the media events.
Yeah.
But having an addiction like that, dealing with your demons, is a rather hard thing, and we just hope he can get over that. It's sad that Well, that's what happened to Javier Sotomayor
Mm.
years and years and years ago.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's a tough one. And so we'll wish him the very, very best,
Mm-hmm.
and hope he gets over it. What? But
just let me give you an update on another story we've covered before.
Sure.
Bianca Williams, the athlete, the black athlete who was, in your words, stopped by the police for the crime of driving a fast car.
Yes.
Anyway, as a result of some of the protests around this, the Metropolitan Police, which is the London Police, investigated their use of handcuffs and have concluded that they over handcuff people, and that particularly people who have not been arrested should only be handcuffed in extreme circumstances. And as I pointed out before, Bianca Williams is about 5'4",
Yeah.
so would clearly present a threat to 4 armed police officers. I mean, there'd be no doubt about that, really, would there?
Definitely, yeah. Or you know,
you can totally understand why 4 armed police officers felt the need to handcuff a 5'4" woman.
Yeah, I share your belief there, you know, and no, we just posted a picture of Bianca up with Lloyd, and which kind of shows her diminutive size and how much of a threat she can be. So good on Bianca. Yeah, I thought she stood up for the right stuff. Driving while black is a problem still in the U.S. as well as in the UK, unfortunately. And for some reason, I thought the UK was a little more developed than we are over here. I remember Bobby Kersey telling me a story one time about how he was wearing a hoodie and a pizza kid came up to his door and he took the pizza that had already been paid, and the next thing he knows, a cop shows up with the gun drawn and says, "Did you steal that pizza?" And Bobby says, "No, I didn't steal the pizza. I paid for it." And the coach looked at him and said, "Oh my God, coach, you coached me. Of course you did." They thought it was some black guy in a hoodie. You know, I mean, and I remember Bobby being very incensed about that, but it happens, you know, and it just, unfortunately, in our current climate, it's happening more. I'm just glad that it's being talked about. Wanted to go back to a couple things. So the indoor meets that we've grown to know and love in Birmingham, that we've grown to know and love in Glasgow, just aren't happening this year, correct?
Well, they're not happening this year, and I don't know whether, nothing has been said as to whether it's just a one-off. I mean, I can understand if Joe Coates and UK Athletics is saying, look, without spectators, we just can't afford to do the event. But no explanation has been given. You know, there is an unconfirmed rumor, belief that Joe Coates is less interested in having events than the previous management. I'm trying to keep an open mind on this and just see what happens next year. I mean, I can totally understand saying, look, we cannot do, I mean, last summer to say that we can't do either of the Diamond Leagues. There's no spectators. I mean, you may say it begs the question as to why Monaco, Stockholm, etc. were able to, but you know, I can understand that if you don't have the income. And again, there used to be Glasgow and Birmingham, and then BBC said we only want to televise one, and then the other one didn't become viable without TV money. And again, I think the TV contract is still in negotiation, shall we say.
Well, I should put on my Alan Pascoe for Prime Minister's shirt right now and just say, Ms. Coates, that perhaps what you should do is outsource your meets to Fast Track and let them bring some good people back. Cherry could use a job, and Sir Ian's probably bored a little bit in Birmingham, and a few others, and you guys could put on some lovely meets again, but have it outsourced so you're not responsible for it. That's what make the most sense. In the U.S., unfortunately, that's the way I thought it was going, and it seems that way with what Paul Doyle and Mark Wetmore do up in Boston, and a few of the other folks, and we'll have to see. Wanted to share with you, I did a Zoom interview with Paul Doyle this week, and I asked him what kind of shape Ryan Krauser's in, and Paul thinks that Ryan can just destroy the indoor world record, which would be a little bit over 23 meters, which would be pretty exciting. And when you think about it, the last guy to have the throwing success and depth was Werner Gunther back in the 80s. So who was just, I mean, I'm not sure. I think Werner, I have to look, but I think Werner was a little bigger than Ryan. But Ryan is such a student of the sport, and I interviewed him over the winter. A lot of fun. The other one he said something about was Sam Kendricks, and we both really enjoy Sam. But he said Mondo's put out the challenge that, you got to get over 10 meters now to really play. And Paul thinks that we're going to see some big jumps from Sam this winter, which would be a lot of fun. I asked if Mondo and Renault would be coming across the pond, but it doesn't sound like it. I think Sweden's locked. Well, I know Norway's locked down. I think Sweden has been really watching after they had some challenges last spring. But, Mondo's jumping, and it's just exciting to see so many fine European athletes out there. I miss seeing Katarina Johnson-Thompson, because she's always so polite and but a tough competitor. And I'll tell you, I think the athlete who controls the media the best is Dina Asher-Smith. I watched her at that press conference in Doha. Someone gave her a little bit of trouble, and she called them cheeky, and kind of, it was an American, and she shut that American up really well. But it's just, it's nice to see that generation of athletes after the 2011-12 group kind of changed, and you see Dina, you see Katarina, you see Jake Whiteman and Gemma and Laura, and there's obviously some young ones coming up. And it's just, is it Reese Prescott? Is that how you pronounce Reese's list? Reese, I get it. The last meet we were in Birmingham, the last indoor World Tour event, he was there. And John Regis and him were kind of going, they like to give each other a little bit of grief. And Reese stood right up he gave some good one-liners back to Regis, and I was quite impressed. So I'm not only impressed with Prescott's sprinting ability, but he could get on the stand-up comedian circuit too. You got a couple of your gentlemen who could do that.
To be able to keep himself fit.
Is that his biggest issue? Okay.
Yeah. Just talking about pole vault, I participated in a really interesting event last Friday night, and I'm going to write up some of it.
Okay.
It was Scott Simpson, the coach, convened it, and he had Holly Bradshaw, Katie Najot, and Kat Stefanidi.
Oh, nice.
In an hour and a half discussion. And I just find it fascinating because, basically he talks through each of them, their career, and how different they were, just making the point, that there's no one way to become an elite athlete. Like we had Stefanidi, who at the age of 15 was clearing 4 meters.
Wow.
But you have Katie Najat, who didn't clear 4 meters until she went to college.
Wow.
And so he just said, well, look, just because you're not brilliant at 16 doesn't mean you can't develop.
Yeah.
And then there was, for me, fascinating stuff. each of them talking through what they're trying to do in the runway, and how many steps you're taking, and also what you're doing with the steps. Like, I was fascinated by one of them saying, "I like to be bouncy," and I think it was Holly who said, "Well, I have 14. I have two walk, then 8 that I bounce, and then 6 that I attack." And phrases like, running through the takeoff, and being at one with the pole. It was all absolutely fascinating stuff. And one of the questions he asked was asked them to share their weaknesses, and they were very good about that. Just actually acknowledging what they were working on and where they wanted to go, and the importance of having the right coach, and how Katie talked about from the time she started working with Brad Walker, her career had really taken off. Whereas Cap, of course, found a coach she liked, and then she married him.
Yeah, that's the I think that's a good alternative. Yeah.
That's one way to keep your coach.
I think so. So I'm going to end this with something that's not track and field related, but it should be track and field related. So this weekend was my girlfriend's birthday, and so she got to pick the movies that we watched. And we watched this hilarious movie called Men with Brooms. It's from 2002, 2003, and it's about curling. And my girlfriend asked me, she goes, "Honey, have you ever tried curling?" And I said, "Yes, I have." And I want to tell you, next to throwing the hammer, which I tried, curling may be the toughest thing that I'd ever done, because I looked at it and I go, "Oh, there's not too much with it, but there's a lot." I tried it in Salt Lake City at one of the trade shows I went to. But what it got me thinking about was, if they can, now they had Leslie Nielsen in the movie, so he makes everything funny. But why couldn't they take track events, obscure track events, and put build a story around them and make them humorous for people to get into too, like the hammer throw, like the javelin. There's crazy people in all of them. So I'm challenging movie directors out there. We'll do a free Zoom for you to come up with a humorous movie about track and field, because there's got to be someone out there, either on your side of the pond or mine, Stuart. So that's our last challenge for the Athletics Chat 35. Stuart, thank you again for this week. Stay safe, my friend. I'll think about you as I'm freezing on my walk today. And I wanted to thank all of our viewers and thank our dear producer, Mike Deering, who has a sore neck today, and we hope he feels better. But this is Larry Eder and Stuart Weir with Athletics Chat 35. Thank you for watching. Stay safe. Wear a mask. Wash your hands. If you like us, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. If you love us, subscribe on YouTube. We had 336 new videos last year. Think about that. And Stuart and I chatted at least 35 times. You lucky devils. Stuart, have a safe evening, my friend. I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
Hey, sports fans. Larry Eder, RunBlogRun. This Athletics Chat 35. This is January 11th, 2021. Just a quick little note. In 2020, we wrote, edited, published, produced 369 different videos and audios. So there's all kinds of stuff for you to watch. If you like us, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. If you love us, subscribe on YouTube. We've got some great stuff from coaching to interviews to, my long-winded opinions to athletics chat and socially the distance. So enjoy. This is the epilogue for Athletics Chat 35, or as a couple people near and dear to me say, Larry's monologue. So here's our topics today. First person we talked about was Lloyd Cohen. Lloyd died last week at the age of 58. He was a longtime coach in the UK. In the 20 years I went there, I got to see him at, I think, almost every meet. Great sense of humor. Loved his athletes. Had some incredible athletes. Andy Turner, European champion, and a bronze medalist in the World Championships. Also, Christina Haragu, who started out as a netball player, and he convinced her to run one day a week, and she won a European junior off that. She ended up becoming an Olympic champion, which I saw, two-time world champion, brilliant 4x4 runner, and always a great interview. And Lloyd really got her going, as he got many athletes going. And the tributes that we'll be posting on RunBlogRun tonight and tomorrow are heartfelt. Some lovely pictures, some great comments from people all over the sport. Lloyd's going to be missed because, like many coaches, he loved the sport, he loved his athletes, loved his family, and was just a good person. And in this crazy time, we need good people. So Lloyd, sorry, I'm going to miss you at meets in the future. We'll be thinking about you and your family. Thank you for all you've done and how many people you've influenced. Our next thing is the great GB Indoor Championships. Is it going to happen? Right now, it still looks like it is. Not much else will happen in the UK this winter, some small meets. The US just canceled their US Indoor Champs, which is supposed to be February 13 through 15, I believe, in Albuquerque, with the combined event championships. Neither one of them are going to happen. The NCAA cross country is March 15th. The NCAA Indoor Division I is the 13th through 15th. Probably no fans. Paul Doyle, the former CEO and now business director at Doyle Sports Management, has something near and dear to his heart, the American Track League, which he's done since 2013. Some people tried to kind of take it from him, but they didn't. And he's going to do 4 meets indoors, January 24th, January 30th, February 7th, February 14th, all in Fayetteville, Arkansas at the Tyson Center on that really smoking banked 200-meter Mondo track. It's going to be a lot of fun to see. ESPN is giving a 2-hour TV window for all 4 meets. We'll have all that information up on the site. Watch for our interview with Paul this week as well. And again, British Championships, I watched them on BBC. Love the meets. Curious to see what level they'll be at and if they will hold them. Then Anna Lignani. Anna Lignani has been with IAAF, now World Athletics, gosh, at least since the 80s. Every World Championship I've been to, and that's everyone since 1995, she's been there helping me out, saving my butt on something. I would forget a copy of my passport or something, and she figured it out. And she didn't have to, but she did. She also fought for media to have reasonably priced hotels, because a lot of times the freelancers, all that money adds up. And the only meal they get a lot of times is the breakfast buffet they get in the hotels, or something free that's given out at the stadium. It's pretty tough on freelance media now, terribly tough. And Anna knew that, and she worked very hard to give us opportunities and to get us a place where we could actually collapse and relax, do some homework, grab a beer, find a little food. That wasn't McDonald's. And Anna, I really appreciate all the work you did behind the scenes, and we're going to miss you. And I'll tell you, one of her other amazing things was she could go from Portuguese to Spanish, both Cuban and European Spanish, and then to Italian, and then to English. And I think she spoke a couple other languages too, but she knew how to get around. She knew how to talk to people. And she was an ambassador to the sport. And a lot of the media really, really cared for her. And we're going to miss her dearly. Luvo Manyango. Luvo, probably the most talented long jumper I've ever seen, but a man with a lot of demons. And he just got a 4-year ban because of some of the recreational drugs that he's been using, going back and forth with. And we hope he finds a way to come to peace with his demons and to put his stuff together so we can see him jump so magnificently as we've seen him do before, come oh so close to touching the sun. But he's got to deal with his demons, and we wish him the very best of luck. But we also know that it takes a support group around there to help a person like him survive. So we hope his friends support him. We also talked about Ryan Krauser, who I think will break the world record for the indoor shot this year. Sam Kendricks, who I think we'll see over 6'10". Sandy Morris just moved to Puma. And we saw Ryan Hill just moved to Hoka 1-1. He's running for the Northern Arizona Elite. And there's a whole group of other athletes that have been moving around as well. So we'll have to see how the affiliations are going and provide an update for you in the near future. But this is Larry Eder with Athletics Chat 35. This was at the epilogue. And I wanted to thank Mike Deering for producing everything. Wanted to say that if you like us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you love us, subscribe on the YouTube. Stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask, exercise, hydrate, call people and tell them that you love them, you care for them. Zoom and be goofy, have fun, and remember to laugh at least 20 times a day. Talk to you soon.